900 years ago, a city in what is now Illinois held more people than London. 50,000 people lived in a sprawling urban center with massive earthen pyramids, planned streets, and organized neighborhoods. It was America's largest city before Columbus. Most people have never heard of it. In July 2024, archaeologists published findings that make the mystery even deeper. For decades, researchers believed this civilization collapsed because drought destroyed their crops. But carbon isotope analysis of soil samples proves their agriculture survived the drought. The crops didn't fail. So why did 50,000 people abandon one of the largest cities in the world? This is Cahokia, and today we're going to walk through a day in this city when it was alive. We'll meet the people who built it, see how they lived, and examine what archaeologists now believe happened when it all ended. But before we can understand what happened to this city, we need to meet the people who built it. Who were the Cahokians? The people who built Cahokia came from everywhere. Walk through the Grand Plaza and you'd see different faces, different clothing styles, different languages being spoken. Some wore pottery decorated in northern styles. Others carried tools made from stone that came from hundreds of miles away. This wasn't a single tribe. It was a gathering of peoples from across the Midwest, all drawn to this one place. Social rank shaped everything. Elite families lived in large houses near the plaza. They wore elaborate clothing, shell bead jewelry, feathered headdresses. Their meals included deer, bear, fish from the river, and stored grains. Common families lived in smaller homes on the city's edges. They wore simpler clothing, worked the fields, and ate mostly corn, beans, and squash. But leadership wasn't just about men. Women held power here too. Both men and women wore the symbols of authority, led ceremonies, and were buried with honors. At Cahokia's peak, 50,000 people called this place home. Farmers brought in harvests. Craftspeople made pottery, wove textiles, carved shell ornaments. Traders moved goods along river routes. Builders hauled earth to construct the great mounds. Priests conducted ceremonies in the plazas. This was a city of immigrants and specialists, ruled by both male and female nobility, sustained by organized labor and agriculture. But to understand how they survived, we need to see how they lived day to day. Food defined survival at Cahokia, and it wasn't just corn. Women controlled the agricultural system. They were the experts, the planners, the ones who understood soil, seasons, and seeds. In spring, they prepared the fields. The rich Mississippi floodplain soil was fertile, but it needed careful management. Women planted using the Three Sisters method. Corn stalks grew tall. Bean vines climbed the corn. Squash leaves spread across the ground, keeping moisture in and weeds out. But they also cultivated plants most people have never heard of. Chenopodium, a North American relative of quinoa. Knotweed, maygrass, marsh elder. Small grains packed with protein and nutrients. These weren't backup crops. They were deliberate choices that spread risk and enriched the diet. Summer meant constant work, tending fields, pulling weeds, protecting crops from birds and deer. Harvest came in waves. First the greens, then squash, then beans, finally corn and the seed crops. Storage mattered as much as growing. Women filled massive granaries with dried corn, beans packed in pottery vessels, seeds stored in woven baskets. A good harvest meant winter survival. A bad harvest meant hunger. But farming wasn't the only food source. Men hunted deer in the surrounding forests. During fall and winter, deer provided most of the meat. Hunters also brought back bear, turkey, and smaller game. The Mississippi River gave fish year-round: catfish, bass, sturgeon. In spring and summer, fish was abundant. Families smoked and dried the catch to preserve it for leaner months. Food preparation was a daily rhythm. Grinding corn on stone mortars, roasting squash over fires, boiling stews in clay pots, smoking meat on wooden frames. Elite families ate better, more meat, more fish, more variety. Common families relied heavily on corn, beans, and whatever they could grow or gather. But everyone depended on the same system: organized agriculture, managed by women who knew their craft, supported by hunters who knew the forests and rivers. This was how 50,000 people survived in one place. Cahokia was built with purpose. Every street, every house, every plaza followed a plan. The city was organized around cardinal directions: north, south, east, west. This wasn't random sprawl. It was deliberate urban design. At the center stood Monk's Mound, 100 feet tall, built in stages over decades, covering 15 acres at its base, the largest earthen structure north of Mexico. Elite families lived at the top in wooden temples and houses. From there, they could see the entire city spread below them. The Grand Plaza stretched out at the foot of the mound, 50 acres of open ceremonial space where thousands could gather. Around the plaza and the mounds, neighborhoods were laid out in organized blocks. Houses followed the same pattern everywhere: rectangular, about 12 by 18 feet, walls made from saplings set in trenches, woven together with branches, covered inside with woven mats or plastered with clay and grass, roofs thatched with bundles of prairie grass. One room per family, usually 5 people. Inside, a central fire pit for cooking and warmth, sleeping platforms along the walls, storage for food, tools, and pottery. It was tight, but it was home. Not all structures were houses. Some buildings served the community. Council lodges where leaders met and made decisions. Sweat lodges, small circular buildings where men gathered for purification rituals. Granaries, raised structures storing the city's food supply. Communal workshops where craftspeople made pottery, tools, and ornaments. Around 1100 CE, the city built a massive wooden wall, a defensive palisade enclosing the central area, 2 miles long, built from 20,000 wooden posts. It protected Monk's Mound, the Grand Plaza, and 17 other mounds. Why they needed protection we can only guess, but the wall was real and it was maintained for decades. Life happened in public spaces, plazas for ceremonies and gatherings, streets connecting neighborhoods, courtyards where families shared work and conversation. People lived close together. Neighbors knew each other's business, helped with children, shared tools and labor. It was a city of connection, but also hierarchy, where you lived told everyone your status, and everyone had a role to play. But Cahokia's greatest achievement wasn't houses or neighborhoods. It was the monuments. 120 earthen mounds rose across the city, platform mounds for temples and elite residences, conical mounds covering important burials, ridgetop mounds marking boundaries and sight lines, each one built by hand. No wheels, no pack animals, no machinery, just people, baskets, and organized labor. Workers dug earth from borrow pits scattered around the site. They carried it in woven baskets on their backs, up ramps, across plazas, to the growing mounds, one basket at a time. 15 million basket loads went into Monk's Mound alone. 22 million cubic feet of earth, moved by hand over decades. Construction happened in stages. They'd build one level, let it settle, compact it down, then add the next layer. each stage planned carefully to prevent collapse. Clay layers sealed the outside. Wooden retaining walls held the earth in place. It took knowledge, engineering, and thousands of coordinated workers. This wasn't random effort. It was urban planning on a massive scale. To the west of Monk's Mound stood something equally impressive: Woodhenge, a circle of massive red cedar posts. 48 posts around the perimeter, one central observation post in the middle. Each post 3 feet thick, set deep in the ground. They aligned with the sun's movement through the year. At the spring and fall equinoxes, standing at the center post, the sun would rise directly over Monk's Mound. The massive pyramid seemed to give birth to the sun. At the summer solstice, one post marked sunrise. At the winter solstice, another. This was a calendar, an observatory, and a sacred space, and they rebuilt it 5 times, making it larger each time. The plazas were monuments in themselves. The Grand Plaza alone was 50 acres of carefully leveled ground. Workers removed natural hills, filled in low spots, created perfectly flat ceremonial space. The entire city was aligned to cardinal directions: north, south, east, west. The mounds, the plazas, the streets, even Woodhenge itself, all positioned according to a cosmic order. This was architecture as religion, the earth itself shaped to match their understanding of the universe. It took wealth to build these monuments. It took power to organize the labor. It took belief to maintain them for generations. And it made Cahokia unlike anything else in North America. Power at Cahokia was concentrated but not absolute. The paramount chief lived atop Monk's Mound, ruling from a position both physical and spiritual. He claimed descent from the sun. His family was treated as divine. When a paramount chief died, others died with him. Wives, servants, sometimes rivals. Their bodies placed in elaborate burials to serve him in the afterlife. This wasn't metaphor, it was enforced reality. Below the paramount chief, a hierarchy of lesser chiefs and priests managed daily affairs. They controlled tribute, organized labor, directed construction. They lived on smaller mounds near the center, close to power but subordinate to it. Council lodges hosted gatherings where decisions were made, disputes settled, plans discussed. Elite families consolidated power through redistribution, not hoarding. Chiefs gave away goods publicly, demonstrating their access to surplus. Feasts displayed abundance. Ceremonies reinforced hierarchy. The message was clear. Power came from divine authority and control of resources. But not everyone accepted this willingly. Around 1160, a walled compound in nearby East St. Louis burned to the ground. Ritual structures filled with stone tools and exotic materials destroyed in flames. Was it rebellion? Internal conflict? A violent statement against inequality? We don't know. But something fractured. 15 years later, around 1175, construction began on the massive defensive wall. 2 miles of wooden palisade enclosing the city center. 20,000 logs cut, stripped, hauled, and set in deep trenches. Defensive bastions every 85 feet. Raised platforms for warriors with bows. L-shaped entryways that forced attackers into killing zones. They rebuilt it 4 times over 50 years, each time refining the design. Why? Threat came from outside and within. Other Mississippian centers built similar walls at the same time. Regional tensions were rising. Burned villages north in the Illinois River Valley show organized raids. Competition for resources, for influence, for survival. Cahokia's warriors were trained for this. They carried bows, clubs, stone axes. They wore distinctive regalia, feathers and paint marking their status. Warrior burials show weapons and trophies. Some mounds held evidence of war rituals, places where warriors prepared for battle. The palisade allowed fewer warriors to defend the sacred center, freeing others to project power outward. Offensive raids to maintain dominance. Messages sent to rival chiefs. Cahokia still controlled this region. But the wall also revealed weakness. Population was declining from its peak. By 1200, maybe 5,000 people lived in the core, down from 15,000 50 years earlier. Maintaining control required concentrated force. The wall bought time but couldn't stop the larger forces at work. Inside the palisade, social order was maintained through visible power. Public ceremonies reminded everyone of their place. The paramount chief appeared during important rituals, elevated above the masses. Punishments for serious crimes were public. Those who challenged authority faced consequences that everyone could see. The society functioned on tribute and obligation. Outlying villages sent food and labor to the center. In return, they received protection, participation in ceremonies, and connection to divine power. It was a bargain enforced by belief and, when necessary, by force. But after a century of dominance, that bargain was starting to break. The archaeological record tells a story of slow unraveling. It begins around 1150. Population starts dropping. Families leave. Houses stand empty. By 1200, the population had fallen from 15,000 to perhaps 5,000 in the central area. The Grand Plaza saw fewer ceremonies. Craft workshops closed. New construction projects stopped. Some mounds remained unfinished. Archaeological layers from this period show a city pulling back, consolidating, shrinking. Then came the floods. Around 1200, after 600 years of relative stability, the Mississippi River began flooding again. Major floods, severe enough to inundate dwelling areas. Sediment cores from nearby Horseshoe Lake show the floods returned repeatedly. The floodplain that had been stable for centuries became unpredictable. At the same time, the climate itself was shifting. The medieval warm period was ending. The Little Ice Age was beginning. Summers grew shorter, winters harsher. Between 1200 and 1400, a severe drought gripped the region. Oxygen isotope analysis suggests it may have been the worst drought in 1600 years. Floods and drought. The paradox shows how unstable conditions had become. The predictable patterns that agriculture depended on were breaking down. Health declined. Burials from this period show iron deficiency anemia, tooth enamel defects. Reliance on corn without proper preparation created nutritional stress. Earlier, around 1050, Cahokians had processed corn through nixtamalization, making it more nutritious. But by 1200, they'd stopped. Nobody knows why. The intensive reliance on untreated maize in a diet causes pellagra, a disease marked by weakness, skin lesions, and, in severe cases, death. Political stress compounded environmental crisis. The diverse coalition of immigrants that built Cahokia required strong consensus. When challenges mounted, that consensus fractured. People began leaving, not in a sudden exodus, but gradually. Families departing to join kin elsewhere. Small groups seeking better opportunities in other Mississippian centers. By 1350, the central precinct was essentially abandoned. The Grand Plaza stood empty. No smoke rose from Monk's Mound's summit. The palisade wall rotted away, its 20,000 posts returning to the earth. Houses collapsed. Earthworks remained, but the people who built them were gone. By 1400, the entire region was abandoned. Not just Cahokia, but the surrounding countryside. Southern Illinois, western Kentucky and Tennessee, southeastern Missouri. Archaeologists call it the vacant quarter. Analysis of sediment from Horseshoe Lake shows fecal stanols, molecular signatures of human waste, dropping to nearly zero by 1400. The population bottomed out completely. For 200 years, the region remained largely empty. Occasional hunting parties may have passed through, but permanent settlement ceased. This wasn't annihilation, it was dispersion. The people who left Cahokia didn't vanish. They joined other communities, carrying their knowledge and traditions with them. Oral histories from tribes like the Osage, Quapaw, and Natchez suggest connections to Cahokia's people. The city ended, but its legacy continued through its descendants. But why did they leave? What combination of pressures pushed enough people away that the entire system collapsed? That's where the explanations diverge. For decades, archaeologists proposed different theories, each focusing on different evidence, each using sophisticated scientific methods to test their ideas. The drought theory came first. Oxygen isotope analysis of lake sediments revealed severe drought from 1200 to 1400, possibly the driest period in 1600 years. Climate data matched the abandonment timeline perfectly. But in 2024, new carbon isotope analysis challenged this. The data showed crops in Cahokia's core weren't failing. Prairie grasses weren't taking over. Agricultural diversity and water management kept food growing despite drought. The flooding theory had strong support. Sediment cores from Horseshoe Lake showed major Mississippi River floods returning around 1200 after 6 centuries of stability. The timing matched population decline and defensive wall construction. Fecal stanol analysis tracked population changes over time. These molecular signatures from human waste preserve in lake sediment for thousands of years. High levels during Cahokia's peak, dramatic drop after 1200, near zero by 1400. The deforestation theory proposed ecological collapse from cutting thousands of trees. But excavations found stable soil with no erosion flooding. Mississippian land use was more sustainable than European-style agriculture. Strontium isotope analysis of teeth revealed that 30% of the population were immigrants from hundreds of miles away. A diverse coalition that required strong political consensus. Carbon and nitrogen isotope analysis of bones showed what people ate and how diet varied by social class. Elite ate more meat and fish. Commoners relied heavily on corn. After 1200, health declined. Iron deficiency, dental problems visible in skeletal remains. The evidence pointed to something more complex than any single cause. Not drought alone, not flooding alone, not political collapse alone. Multiple pressures converging simultaneously. When climate became unpredictable, when floods destroyed infrastructure, when health declined from nutritional stress, when political coalitions fractured under pressure, when warfare consumed resources needed for adaptation, the system couldn't absorb all the shocks at once. Ground-penetrating radar and magnetometry revealed Cahokia's true scale. Hundreds of buried structures, multiple plazas, extensive infrastructure far beyond visible mounds. A genuinely sophisticated urban center. Ceramic analysis showed trade networks spanning hundreds of miles. Pollen analysis documented agricultural intensification, then reforestation after abandonment. Tree ring analysis revealed climate patterns. Residue analysis showed what was cooked in ancient vessels. Each method answers specific questions. Together, they reconstruct not just what happened, but why. Not through speculation, but through molecular evidence preserved in bone, sediment, and soil. The picture that emerges: a resilient, sophisticated civilization facing a perfect storm of environmental and social crises. Challenges that individually might have been manageable became overwhelming when they converged. This is how modern archaeology works. Multiple disciplines, multiple methods, building understanding layer by layer, correcting old assumptions, revealing complexity. Cahokia challenges assumptions about civilization, about collapse, about indigenous North America. We're taught to think of pre-Columbian America as scattered villages, small-scale societies waiting for European discovery. Cahokia proves that narrative false. This was urban planning, political organization, engineering sophistication, cultural diversity managed at scale, a civilization by any definition. Its abandonment doesn't diminish that achievement. Cities rise and fall. London was abandoned by Romans. Angkor was reclaimed by jungle. Cahokia's people made rational decisions to disperse when conditions became untenable. That's not failure, that's adaptation. The myth of the vanishing Indian has obscured historical truth. Cahokia's people didn't disappear. They migrated, joined other communities, carried knowledge forward through generations. Modern native nations, the Osage, Quapaw, Omaha, Ponca, maintain cultural and oral connections to Mississippian ancestors. The story didn't end in 1400. It continued through descendants who are alive today. What Cahokia reveals about climate and society resonates now. Environmental instability doesn't just affect crops. It cascades through political systems, health, economics, social cohesion. When multiple stresses converge, even sophisticated societies face existential challenges, not because they're primitive or foolish, but because some combinations of crises overwhelm available solutions. That's a lesson worth understanding, not as warning or prophecy, but as recognition that complexity has limits, that systems under strain behave unpredictably, that adaptation sometimes means transformation. Modern archaeology keeps revealing new insights. Methods improve. Old theories get challenged. Our understanding of Cahokia will continue evolving as science advances. What remains constant? Respect for the achievement, recognition that sophisticated urban civilization existed in North America 1,000 years ago, and acknowledgement that its builders' descendants continue their cultures today. Cahokia's mounds still stand, monuments to engineering, to social organization, to human ambition and capability, and to resilience, because the people who built them survived their city's end, carrying forward knowledge that persists across centuries. That's the real story. Not mysterious disappearance, but human adaptation across time. If you found this exploration of Cahokia valuable, subscribe to Ancient Unexplained. We investigate archaeological mysteries using the latest scientific research. No sensationalism, just evidence-based history. Check the description for sources, including the 2024 studies challenging traditional theories. And let me know in the comments, what ancient site should we investigate next? Thanks for watching. All visuals in this video are illustrative visuals for educational purposes, based on archaeological research, peer-reviewed studies, and academic publications from institutions including universities, museums, and archaeological organizations. Visualizations are artistic interpretations of ancient civilizations intended to support public understanding. Actual artifacts and site photography cited when used.